Good morning, children, and welcome to the second part of our maths learning on mental methods, division and multiplication. So yesterday you did so amazingly well. It would appear from the work that I've marked that we're going to move on to thinking. So with our thinking, I'm not obviously going to give you the answers, but I'm going to give you strategies to work through the questions, because I know at school we have the chance to talk more about thinking and what we might expect from our answer than at home. So we're going to work through the thinking question, and I know some of you have already completed thinking one, so well done for that. But I'm just going to take those of you who have not completed it yet through the question. It says, convince me that 624 times 8 does not equal 600 times 8, add 20 times 8, add 4 times 8. So it's 4,800, add 160, add 32 equals 492. And I'm hoping that you gauge from the fact that it says, convince me that it does not equal, that there is a error in that question somewhere. So what I would like you to do is partition 624 into 620 and 4, multiply it by 8, so each one 600 times 8, 20 times 8 and 4 times 8, and then calculate your totals and then add them together to see where the error is in this question. So that's not too difficult to complete. It's just making sure that you get those multiplication questions, those answers correct in order to get your additions. Okay, so you will partition it into 600 times 8, 20 times 8 and 4 times 8, and do what I teach to do all of the time. Use what you know. So 8 times 600 is a little bit tricky, but what about if we say 8 times 6? 8 times 6, we know our 6 and our 8 times table, but then you've got 2 zeros in 600, so you must have 2 zeros in your answer. So don't just say 8 times 6 is, and then forget that actually you are multiplying 600. And the same with 20 times 8. You could say 8 times 2, I know that, but 20 has a 0 on it. I'm multiplying by a tens number, so I need to make sure that my answer has a 0 in the units column. And then 4 times 8, and then do your addition and see if you get the same answer, 4,892. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you won't. So, thinking. Number 2, show me how you are partitioning the follow calculation using the part-whole model. So looking at the learning that we did yesterday, we've got 798. So we've got 798 divided by 8. So first of all, you've got to partition 798 into hundreds. So how many hundreds? Into your tens and into your units. So what is 798 partitioned? So if you took them apart, what would you have? Okay, so I'll do an example for you. So for example, if I had 596 divided by 4, 596 partitioned is 500, add 90, add 6. Okay, so that's how you partition. So use that information to help you partition 798 correctly. And then you divide by 4. So you would have 400, 500 even, divided by 4, 90 divided by 4, and 6. Okay, so Or if you wanted to do it another way, you could partition 500 and then add 96 and then multiply 500 by 4 and 96 by 4, and that's probably a lot easier than if you partition it this way. Okay, so it's using those skills that you already know, so make sure that you partition correctly. So really, what the answer wants you to do is show me how you would write the question, 798 divided by 8, and then your part-whole model. And I'm going to do it like that. So I'm going to partition 798 into 700 and to 98, because that will make my division a whole lot easier. And of course you can use the inverse, your times tables, to make sure, and then your answer in your part-whole model. So in your work, I'd like to see a part-whole model for that answer. So I'll leave you with that one. Now, explain and model two different mental methods, mental calculation strategies that you could use to solve the following calculations. So obviously one of your answers there is going to be the part-whole model. So for instance, if I was going to multiply two different ways, I might take the number 342 times 5. Okay, so I'm going to partition using the part-whole model, because that's one of the methods we used. So I will have 300 times 5 equals 40 times 5 equals, and 2 times 5 equals. And then I will put what they equal. And I have partitioned one way using the part-whole model. And if I wanted to use a second partitioning mental calculation method, I might say 300 times 5 equals and 42 times 5 equals. And that's the second multiplication mental method that you could use, just by still partitioning those numbers, but modelling it in a different way. So I'll leave that one with you, so it's not too difficult. But of course, you do have to then write an explanation of what you've done. So for number 1, I used the part-whole model, and I partitioned 342 into hundreds, tens, and units. Okay, so that's just a brief explanation. Your explanation doesn't have to be too detailed. And then what did you do here? What's the difference between what you did here and what you did here? So I partitioned this into hundreds and then tens and units still combined. So then I might say that I then added my totals to get the answer. Okay, so 300 times 5, I'm going to say 3 times 5 is 15. I've got 2 zeros in 300, so I know I need 2 zeros in that answer. 40 times 5, I'm going to say 4 times 5 is 20, but I've got a 0 because I'm multiplying by a tens number, so I need to make sure that I've got that 0 in my answer. And 2 times 5 is 10. So I've got 1,500 add 200, which is 1,700 add 10, which gives me an answer of 1,710. So that's how you can do it that way. And then similarly that way, you can do 5 times 3, making sure that you've got the answer up here anyway, and then 42 times 5. So that's an example of the kind of answer that we are looking for explaining. So division. We can look at a different method for division. So we could have 6,240 divided by 40. So how might I partition that to... Oh, yeah, for a moment then I thought I'd put multiplication sign there. So what I could do is I could say I will divide even 6,200 divided by 40, and then 40 by 40, and then calculate my answer. Or I could then, of course, use my part whole model, and I could still have the same calculation, and then I could say 6,000 divided by 40 as one of my parts, and then I could say 240 divided by 40, and then calculate my answer. And then in the same way that you did for explaining with multiplication, you write what you did and how you got to the answer. So you would calculate that, find your answer, and then in your explain the method that you used. Show me your correct answer as we go along. Then if you make it to solving, you need to look carefully at the question. There are 60 crates which contain 215 eggs. 3 shop owners buy an equal amount of each. Okay, so you have to think about, Lila is trying to work out how many eggs each shop owner has. Okay, so it's showing you the calculation that she did. And she first multiplied, there were 60 crates which contain 215 eggs, which is correct because she's got 60 crates and they contain 250 eggs. So to find out how many eggs are in total, you need to multiply 215 by 60, which she has done. But do not think that just because she's calculated it, that her answer is correct. So the first part here, you need to multiply those numbers together, which she's done. So you will have the same calculation, 215 times 60, but then see if your answers match. And then what she did was she then divided the total that she got from the multiplication. She divided it by the 3 shop owners. So you have to divide your total by 3. So it's a 2-part problem solving question. So if, for example, her answer here is incorrect, then her answer here will be incorrect. Her method is not incorrect. She's used the correct method. She's multiplied first and then divided by the 3 shop owners, but she's then possibly made a mistake in her calculation. So you need to follow through her calculation. So you need to multiply 215 by 60, and then whatever answer you get, you divide that by 3. So not too challenging the solving, not perhaps as challenging as they might be in class, but we are aware that you are home learning, so that we need to make, whilst I'm recording a lesson, I need to make it a little bit more accessible for you. Next week, when we are live, obviously, we can be slightly more challenging. So I look forward to seeing you soon. Good luck with maths, and I'll see you next week. Bye.